What happens when the man who erased you from his life is forced to watch you inherit an empire? When tech mogul Marcus Fleming looked right through me on a San Francisco street like I was invisible, he had no idea that in 48 hours I would become the most powerful woman in Silicon Valley. This isn't just about money. It's about the moment when everything changes and the ghost you created comes back to claim her throne. Elena Vasquez had perfected the art of disappearing. Not the dramatic kind, just the slow, steady fade that happens when someone decides you no longer matter. Her world had contracted to the size of her small Mission District apartment, a universe away from the Pacific Heights mansion she once called home. 3 years since the divorce, 3 years of rebuilding from nothing while her ex-husband Marcus Fleming continued his meteoric rise through Silicon Valley's elite circles. Elena's days were measured in coffee shop shifts and evening photography classes, her camera the only rebellion against a life determined to make her small. Today, the December fog wrapped around San Francisco like a familiar embrace as Elena walked through Union Square, portfolio clutched against her chest. She was delivering prints to a gallery, a small victory that felt monumental in her carefully reconstructed world. Then she saw him. Marcus stepped out of a Tesla Model S, his navy wool coat perfectly tailored, his dark hair styled with the meticulous precision he applied to everything. Beside him was Sophia Winters, a venture capitalist whose perfectly curated Instagram life made Elena's stomach twist with old familiar pain. They were laughing, the sound cutting through the afternoon bustle like broken glass. For one devastating moment, Elena's feet betrayed her, freezing her in place as memories crashed over her. Marcus, years ago, telling her she was the only authentic thing in his world of digital facades. The memory shattered as they approached, Sophia's heels clicking an aggressive rhythm on the pavement. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Just keep walking, stay invisible. But visibility found her anyway. Marcus's gaze swept over her. A brief, dismissive glance that held no recognition, not the careful avoidance of an awkward ex-encounter. This was the blank stare reserved for strangers, for background noise, for nothing. He had looked right through her. Sophia, however, paused. Her perfectly arched eyebrow lifted as she took in Elena's worn denim jacket, her practical boots, her camera bag slung across her shoulder. A faint smirk touched her lips before Marcus guided her past, already forgotten. The portfolio in Elena's arms suddenly felt impossibly heavy. The cold wasn't just in the December air anymore. It had settled into her bones, a deep chill that spoke of complete erasure. 8 years of marriage, her support through his startup struggles, her belief in him when venture capitalists slammed doors, all of it deleted from his memory like a corrupted file.
Before we continue, please comment below where you are watching from, and don't forget to subscribe.
That evening, city lights did little to warm her sparse apartment. Elena was in her makeshift darkroom when the intercom buzzed, startling her from the red-lit silence. "Miss Vasquez? Courier delivery. Needs signature." The envelope was cream-colored, heavy stock with the letterhead of Morrison, Klein & Associates, one of San Francisco's most prestigious law firms. Elena's hands trembled as she opened it. "We request your presence at our offices tomorrow at 2 p.m. for the reading of the last will and testament of our client, Mr. Theodore Blackwood." Theodore Blackwood. Elena read the name twice before recognition dawned. Not the reclusive tech titan whose rare public appearances made headlines, but Teddy, the gentleman who'd sat in the corner booth at her coffee shop for months. He'd ordered the same thing daily, black coffee, no sugar, and would spend hours reading leather-bound books while Elena worked. They'd developed an easy friendship built on shared appreciation for old films and quiet conversation about the changing city. He'd stopped coming a few months ago. Elena had assumed he'd moved or perhaps fallen ill. But his will? She'd mentioned having no family. Perhaps he'd left her a book or a small keepsake. It had to be something simple. Morrison, Klein & Associates occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in the financial district. The receptionist led Elena through corridors lined with mahogany and law degrees to a conference room where one man waited. "Ms. Vasquez, I'm James Morrison," said the silver-haired attorney, rising to greet her. "Thank you for coming." I was deeply sorry to hear about Theodore's passing. Elena sank into a leather chair that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He was a lovely man. I'm confused why I'm here, though. Morrison's expression was kind but serious. Theodore spoke of you often in our final meetings. He said you were the only person in recent years who saw him simply as Ted, not as Theodore Blackwood. I don't understand. Morrison slid a thick document across the polished table. Theodore Blackwood founded Nexus Technologies in 1987. At the time of his death, his personal estate was valued at approximately $25 billion. The number hung in the air like smoke. Elena stared at him, certain she'd misheard. Ted. The Ted I knew. He said he was a retired librarian. He lived in a small apartment in the Sunset. He did maintain modest quarters for personal reasons, Morrison confirmed gently, but he was also one of the most successful entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley history, and he has named you as the sole beneficiary of his estate. The room tilted. Elena gripped the chair arms, her photographer's eye noting absurd details, the way afternoon light cut through the windows, the reflection of her shocked face in the conference table's surface. This is impossible. Why would he? Morrison opened another envelope, this one bearing Elena's name in Ted's familiar handwriting. He left this for you. Elena's hands shook as she unfolded the letter. My dear Elena, if you're reading this, then you know the truth about who I was, or rather, who the world thought I was. But you know who I really was, just Ted, the man who enjoyed our conversations about Casablanca and complained about the new condos ruining the neighborhood. You never asked what I did for a living, how much money I had, or what I could do for you. You just saw a lonely old man and offered him kindness. In a city obsessed with networking and advancement, you gave me something I thought had vanished, genuine human connection. I built an empire, Elena, but empires can be monstrous things in the wrong hands. I've watched men like your ex-husband my entire career, brilliant perhaps, but hollow. They see people as assets, relationships as transactions, and legacy as personal monument. I'm giving you this responsibility not as reward, but as trust. You have something they don't, the ability to see humanity in the machinery. Don't let this power change your heart. Let it amplify your compassion. Your friend, Ted P.S., the man who couldn't see you today, will spend the rest of his life trying to get your attention. Don't give it to him. Tears blurred Elena's vision. The weight settling on her shoulders wasn't just money, it was purpose, faith, and the crushing responsibility of honoring a good man's trust. The news broke during Marcus Fleming's own moment of triumph. His startup, Convergent AI, was hosting its IPO celebration at the Four Seasons. Silicon Valley's elite gathered to toast his success. Elena watched from her new penthouse office as the story exploded across news feeds. Mystery tech heiress revealed, former barista inherits $25 billion empire. Her phone, a simple device she'd rarely used, became a weapon of mass communication. Calls flooded in from reporters, distant relatives who'd suddenly remembered her existence, and old acquaintances with convenient friendship amnesia. Marcus called 18 times. His voicemails progressed from confusion to desperation. Elena, this has to be a mistake. Call me. Lena, we need to talk. This Blackwood thing, how is this possible? For God's sake, what's happening? How could you know Theodore Blackwood? Was this planned? Were you playing some long game? His bewilderment was almost amusing. The possibility that she'd had a life, connections, or destiny separate from him was inconceivable. Elena's first day at Nexus Technologies felt like stepping into a parallel universe. The headquarters occupied an entire block in SOMA, a monument to innovation and quiet power. Employees moved with respectful efficiency, their expressions mixing awe and curiosity as they glimpsed their new CEO. The board meeting was predictably tense. 12 executives, 11 men and 1 woman, sat around a table that could host the UN Security Council. They radiated skepticism and barely concealed panic. Ms. Vasquez, said Harold Chen, the longtime COO, we understand this transition is unprecedented. Perhaps we could discuss a gradual integration. You want to sideline me? Elena interrupted, her voice calm but sharp. You're hoping I'll be a figurehead while you maintain actual control. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Theodore was very specific in his directives, Elena continued. I hold controlling interest. My vote is final on all company matters. I suggest we establish that clearly before we proceed." She'd spent 3 sleepless nights studying Ted's private files, understanding his vision, his concerns about the company's future. His notes were detailed, prescient, and revealed deep worry about technology being used to further isolate rather than connect humanity. "My first initiative," Elena announced, "will be the Blackwood Foundation for Digital Humanities. We'll fund projects that use technology to preserve culture, support artists, and maintain human connection in an increasingly automated world." It was a direct challenge to the board's profit-first mentality. It was also exactly what Ted would have wanted. The meeting was interrupted by Harold's assistant, pale-faced and nervous. "Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt. Marcus Fleming is here. He's quite insistent about seeing Miss Vasquez." Marcus strode into the boardroom like he owned it, his confidence a mask barely concealing desperation. The board members stared, recognizing the fallen prince of their world. "Elena," he said, ignoring protocol and everyone else in the room, "we need to talk." Privately. Elena remained seated, her hands folded calmly on the table. Around her, 11 executives watched the drama unfold with undisguised fascination. "Mr. Fleming," she said, her voice carrying the authority that came with owning the building they sat in, "this is a private meeting. Don't play games, Lena. You know we have history. We need to clear the air about this Blackwood situation." He was trying to create intimacy, to suggest conspiracy or collaboration in front of the board. It was a power play, born of panic. Elena stood slowly, the room falling silent as her heels clicked on the polished floor. She walked around the table until she stood directly in front of him. "My name," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper that somehow filled the room, "is Miss Vasquez, and you are trespassing." Security appeared at the doors immediately. Marcus's face contorted with disbelief and rage. "Elena, don't do this. Don't let pride destroy what we could rebuild. I know I made mistakes, but—" "The only mistake," Elena said, cutting him off, "was thinking you mattered enough for this to be about you." As security escorted a sputtering Marcus from the building, Elena turned back to the stunned board members. "Now," she said, straightening her blazer as if nothing had happened, "where were we?" 6 months later, spring had transformed San Francisco's hills into a tapestry of green and gold. Elena stood in the gallery where her journey had truly begun, not with Ted's inheritance, but with her first photography exhibition. The Blackwood Foundation had funded the gallery's expansion, creating space for emerging artists whose work might otherwise go unseen. Elena's own photographs lined one wall, images capturing forgotten corners of the city, moments of beauty in overlooked places. A young artist approached, nervous but determined. "Miss Vasquez, I wanted to thank you. The grant program. It saved my career." Elena smiled, remembering another young woman whose dreams had been nearly extinguished by someone else's indifference. "Keep creating," she said. "The world needs what you see." Through the gallery's windows, she could see the city lights beginning to twinkle. Somewhere out there, Marcus was trying to rebuild his reputation from the ashes of his public humiliation. Sophia had moved on to a crypto billionaire. The gossip columns had new scandals to dissect. Elena felt no triumph in their downfall, no satisfaction in their struggle. She had learned something Ted understood. The greatest revenge isn't destroying your enemies, it's becoming so successful they become irrelevant. Harold Chen approached, holding 2 glasses of wine. Over the months, he'd become her most trusted advisor, and surprisingly, her friend. "To Elena Vasquez," he said, raising his glass, "who taught us that real power isn't about being seen, it's about choosing who deserves to see you." Elena accepted the toast, looking around at the vibrant art, the hopeful faces of young creators, the city that had nearly broken her but ultimately shaped her into something stronger. She thought of Ted's letter, of his faith in her humanity. She'd kept her promise. The money hadn't changed her heart. It had simply given her the power to amplify her compassion, to use technology as a bridge rather than a wall. The woman who had once been invisible was now impossible to ignore. But more importantly, she was finally, completely herself.